Can the old knucklehead deal with an onslaught of the undead? Well, let's hop into the pages of Wolverine issue number 5 and find out together, shall we? Alrighty then, so when we last left off, Wolverine was getting positively blackout drunk in northern Ontario, and I'm pretty sure I could see my house from here. His binge was cut short, however, by the reappearance of the vampire nation Dracula and their newest crony, Omega Red. Wolverine got himself turned into one giant mutant popsicle, and now the vampires have quite literally tapped him like the hairiest keg in the world to get that sweet, sweet mutant miracle blood inside Logan. Not only is Wolverine's blood amazing because of its regenerative powers, but when drank by vampires, it can actually allow them to walk in the daylight. And now that old Vlad Dracula and his cronies are finally able to make use of that full 24 hours, they have oh so many glorious, horrible plans they want to enact. First things first, they load up a truck of their newly transformed victims from the Canadian North and transport them across the border to America, where they can kind of just go nuts, flood the streets, and transform more people for the ever-growing vampire nation that in and of itself hopes to one day be able to oppose Krakoa in size. Wolverine ultimately ends up getting saved by the most unlikely of characters. It's a group of vampire kids.
Yeah, I'm more a sanguinarian vampire, in that I rely more on the life force energy, per se.
No, not those freaking vampire kids. These kids are actually pretty damn cool. For starters, they don't drink the blood of humans, they absolutely hate Dracula. And they ride around on snowmobiles. Basically, they are to teen vampires what Teen Wolf was to werewolves. All we're missing is for them to do a sick-ass guitar solo and we'll be positively set. As Wolverine soon discovers, Dracula and the other Vampire Nation members have been creeping all across Thunder Bay, kidnapping people from small, secluded northern towns, and transforming them to feed his ever-growing army. Logan knows full well he's probably not going to be able to deal with them all on his own, but thankfully the vampire kids decide to join him in this newest endeavor, and oh man, do they have one hell of a plan to strike back at Dracula. You know how a little wooden stake through a heart is able to kill a vampire? Well, what if it was a giant wooden spear attached to a snowmobile?
Long spears, twice as long as a man.
Some men are longer than others.
Your mother been telling you stories about me again.
Seriously, this is maybe the most Canadian thing I've ever seen in a comic ever. I may just have to break out into the national anthem any moment now, so, apologies. But don't worry, this big finale isn't just syrup-soaked action. Wolverine actually has one hell of an internal monologue going on. Basically, he compares the rise of Krakoa as a nation and their defeat of death to basically how vampire society is being run and how they deal with their undeath. Essentially, Wolverine says immortality brings out what was always in you. In short, if you were a good person before you became immortal, then you're gonna use that extra time and fearlessness to continue to do good things. But if you were secretly always a bad person, then equally that newfound power and fearlessness is going to make you push your boundaries harder and harder into doing more and more evil things, and mutant kind is gonna have a reckoning with this very soon. It's while chopping up Dracula's lieutenants too, Wolverine gets some answers to some very important questions, mainly if they went through all the trouble to have Omega Red capture him and put him on ice, why did they just leave him for the kids to pick up? Well, as we discover, apparently the most terrifying weapon in Dracula's arsenal is his pragmatism. Oh, he could have kept Wolverine around and kept drinking his blood, but he already got some and completed his goal. And had they kept Wolverine much longer, eventually the mutants would have assumed he was kidnapped and sent a search party for him. Then it would have been Vampire Nation versus Krakoa way earlier than Dracula wanted. So while Wolverine may have won this battle, it's kind of an empty, hollow victory because the war with vampire kind continues to rage on and they just got themselves one hell of a head start. Just to really rub some salt in the wound too, as the comic comes to a close, Wolverine can't even make it back to Krakoa to get everyone else up to speed on what happens because the friggin' Rainbow Bridge from Asgard snaps him up first. And so that was Wolverine issue number 5, and I gotta say, I'm enjoying what Benjamin Percy is doing, really carving out a unique identity for this book. If you want Wolverine dealing with Krakoan politics, go read X-Force. If you want more classic self-contained Wolverine stories, then definitely pick up this solo series. That's still not to say what's happening to Logan isn't continually colored by what's going on in Krakoa. It's just that he can also have fun side adventures where he fights vampires on snowmobiles, and I mean, really, isn't that what we all want at at the end of the day. Speaking of art, I really like what Bogdanovic manages to do with Dracula and his ilk. They all have their own little personalities, and the blood clock is a super clever premise and something I hope we see come back. My only real complaint, though, with this story is that it all feels very, very familiar for Wolverine. He rolls into town, meets some new people, fights some enemies, and then walks off into the sunset at the end. Nothing wrong with it, but also nothing I haven't seen before. Overall, I'd give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.